You're ready to be premature all over again.
Wow, that's impressive.
Quick
bro.
reset. Quick reset.
Last night was Ramos Jizz.
Freudian slip. Who knew the job was pro bono?
I was so high that I shit myself at some point.
Okay, I can still hear somebody. Everybody mute. Goddamn, you're killing me.
My SEAL Team 6 went to SEAL Team 12.
There's nothing wrong with punching above your weight.
I thought you'd get better.
Well,
I don't know what's worse. You're a ginger or you've been vaccinated.
You sit around and drink and solve the world's problems, right?
I'm fucking trying to do my intro. I look up and you're jerking off into the camera. What are you doing? This is shake weight. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we're not all here. It's kind of disappointing, actually. Los Cuatros Jinetes
It's very
are
disappointing.
Not all here.
It's sad. It's just sad.
We don't have Big Mac. Unfortunately, he is not here. He's doing some shit. I don't know, celebrating somebody's birthday. I don't know who, but apparently they're important, more important than this show. But that's fine. He's not here. But the three of us, the three amigos, we're going to hold it down. We're going to lock it down, and we're going to plow ahead like we always do, regardless of circumstances. Here we are, gentlemen. Glad everybody's here. Save one. How is everyone doing?
Good.
Sad.
Ready to roll.
Ready to
I
roll.
mean, I'm happy.
I'm happy to
You're
be
happy.
here.
We're happy
I'm
to be
sad that we don't have all four of us.
And you've got your shake weight going on.
I got my shake weight going on because, reasons.
Reasons.
Got to be prepared for them Friday nights, baby.
Before, you know what? Never mind. I'm just going to skip it. I was going to ask a question, but I'm going to wait and we'll do it. Doesn't matter.
And them big ankled Eastern European women, they don't lift their ankles on their own, You gotta
okay,
the
cool.
muscles.
So I noticed you were using your shake weight. I'm curious what you're drinking today. So I'm going to let you go first, Haas.
I went with a bourbon stone sour.
Is that what you were beating the shit up in
I
the
was,
shaker?
but I was beating the shit up. But I've added a couple of things. So it's generally just bourbon, simple syrup, lemon juice, orange juice. I don't put as much lemon juice in as they ask for because I'm not a huge fan. But then I put a little peach bitters and then a little dash of grenadine in there as well.
Nice.
And this has become like one of my go-to. I don't know. I just love this drink.
Yeah, there's something to be said for have a drink that you're just really good at making.
Yeah.
Not lots of drinks, but like a couple or one that you're like,
Couldn't
that's
agree.
my go-to.
But tastes good too.
Yeah, exactly. Do you guys feel like you have a couple? Because I have a couple few maybe.
We know you do. Clearly, Mac does. He's only got 2 drinks in his repertoire: tequila, a margarita, and a Kentucky Buck. That's it.
That's exactly. But you know what? I bet those things are banging when he makes them.
I don't have one. I don't have go-tos that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm always going to go back to this one, or at least I haven't yet. 3 years on in this show, I haven't landed on one where I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Because this one, the Mrs. Haas asks me to make a batch of these at least a few times a month.
There you go. So clearly you have.
I've gotten in this one for sure. What about you, Grinchy Poo?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't made one in a long time, but old fashioned. I just think the old fashioned, when you nail it.
See, I wish I was good at that because I love a good old fashioned, but I am not good at making them.
Yeah, I mean, you get to me like if you over pour the bitters, I really don't like that. I don't like muddling up fruit and lemon juice in my old fashioned. I don't like that. I like it pretty straightforward and just done well. And I do shake. I know some people don't believe in that. They think it makes it cloudy or whatever. I like it shaken. But yeah, old fashioned, I think, is the one that if you just nail it, like it's just a very enjoyable experience.
Shaken or not shaken, at the end of the day, you need to enjoy what you're drinking, right? So if that's the way you like it, then fuck it. What are you drinking, by the way?
Which this tees up the point that there's a lot of drinks, honestly, you can drink and forget about as fast as you've finished it because they're good or whatever, but they're not memorable. I put this in that category. It's called the Absolute Long Porn Star. Don't know why it has that name. It's on the Absolute website, and it's ice, Absolute vanilla, Malibu rum, and passion fruit juice with some pineapple.
It sounds banging.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it is, but I wouldn't, like with an old fashioned, necessarily go, well, what am I going to keep tweaking on this to make it better and better?
Yeah,
you certainly could.
But you're not going to spend the time and effort.
No, I'm not.
Okay, there you go. And this is called the Absolute
Long
Porn
Star.
Porn Star. Okay. There you go. It does sound good, but if it's obviously easily forgettable, then
well, and it's funny on their website, and this is for the apple vodka flavor specifically. They've got the porn star martini, and then I will say a really easy one that I almost went with is the absolute vanilla cola. You could see that being a pretty enjoyable drink.
Yeah,
It's very
absolutely.
simple, and I almost did that one, but I went with this because
you can always cycle to that one next if you need to.
something about a long porn star. I don't know.
You were hoping for more than it actually turned out to be. I understand. All right, so I'll finish. I did one. I was trying to find something. I hadn't had it in a while.
Did you get a drink called the Survivalist? Please tell me you did.
I no, I didn't.
But he's wishing now he had.
Yes,
right?
yes, he is.
I wish you hadn't even said that.
He's like, I'm drinking regret.
It is actually.
In fact, I'm not even going to drink this drink I made. I'm just going to drink air and my tears, and that's it.
I was trying to find a drink to make. I got it was actually gifted to me, but it was a 12-pack, and I haven't had it. I don't even remember. That was probably young. Grape soda. And it's one of those things when you drink it that's like the minute you taste it, it has a very distinct taste, and you're like, okay, I remember that, and there's something about it for me. And so my mother-in-law got a 12-pack, so I was like, I want to make something with that. So I couldn't find anything specific to it, so I'm making what's called the Grimace. For those of you who habla and you know who the Grimace is, I don't need to explain it.
Look at McDonald's, babe.
I'm just saying, but it's not in rotation like it was like back in the 80s with the Hamburglar and Grimace and Ron.
Yeah, so, why did they get rid of those characters?
Who the fuck knows? But we digress.
Okay.
So I'm doing it for that particular reason, not Grimace as in making a disgusting, ugly, distorted face, which is the definition of Grimace. It is because of that character who was a purple, I don't even know what the fuck kind of character.
There's a Grimace.
And it is absolute vodka, and I put it in a shaker with ice and grape jam, hearkening to our jam smash or whatever the fuck that I think Grinch first brought to
the bourbon jam smash,
yes.
Bourbon strawberry smash, something like that.
And I shook the shit out of that, and then I just added grape soda. I mean, it's just this shit. Crushed grape soda, and so of course it's purple, and it's got a good flavor.
You gotta don't forget, do it.
Come on, brother. Always.
You gotta do the pokey poke. Boop, boop, boop. And
very grape soda-ish. Obviously, you get the vodka, and then you get a bit of extra sweetness from the grape jam. So very tasty. I like it. But will this be in the rotation? No, probably not.
I mean, other than the viscosity, in truth, you could leave the grape jam out.
Of course you could.
And be just fine.
I think I thought it would do more than it did.
Yeah.
It's like a long porn star. You're hoping for more, and you get disappointed. So that's what I'm doing. So the Grimace, the long porn star, and the bourbon smash that has caveats now. So cheers, gentlemen, before we jump in.
By the way, drinklab.org has a drink called Rooted in Survival Cocktail.
Okay.
It is 2 ounces of silver tequila, an ounce of carrot juice, half ounce of lemon juice, half ounce of agave nectar, a dash of bitters, 1 splash blood orange soda. But I believe it's inspired or part of their Hunger Games cocktails and drinks collection.
Okay.
All right. So you know what? You came to this one first, Grinch, in terms of what we're talking about. And so I'm going to let you actually take over here and give our audience the kind of what for in terms of what we're going to be discussing.
Set the stage, maestro.
Absolutely. But I am going to say right here at the beginning, for all of you who are listening, there will almost undoubtedly be spoilers. So if that's an issue for you, I don't know what to tell you, but we have passed the statute.
Stop listening if you don't want spoilers.
Exactly.
But the problem is you don't know what we're talking about, so how can you stop listening?
That's why I did it right here. So there are going to be spoilers. The statute of limitations on spoilers for us has passed. So you either listen or you don't. So Grinch, brother, take it away.
Yes. So if in case you're living under a rock, you would know that there is a show on HBO now called The Last of Us, which is based on the video game created by Naughty Dog. And statistically, there's so much to say about the show. First off, just how well cast it is, but statistically, it's it had one of the second, I think it had the second highest viewership increase from episode 1 to 2, which just everybody seems to be really, really liking, except for these fucking idiots that are like review bombing, and they can all go to hell. So everybody was really pleased with 1 and 2, and it's excellent. And then episode 3 hit, and instantly rave reviews. Some are already calling it one of the best episodes of TV you will see this year. I also saw a list of like the top 10 most emotional episodes that have ever been on HBO, and that's up there as number 1 right now. So
I'll tell you, I cried.
I did too.
I cried.
I did too.
And here's what's fucked up. Mrs. Haas and I went on a date night last night, and we saw that movie with Tom Hanks, My Name is Otto or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm balling, like snot bubbles balling, like 2 days in a row. I got nothing left. I'm dehydrated.
So phenomenal. And for those that don't know or didn't play the video game, this was actually a significant adjustment to what you would have gotten from the 2 characters in the video game. So for discussion to here today is the episode, these 2 incredible actors that made that entire episode work. And just, if you didn't know, like some of the really interesting facts about these 2 guys, because Nick Offerman in particular is just a fascinating dude. Like the more I learn about him,
talented.
Well, I mean, he's the quintessential man's man, because of Swanson, right? Ron Swanson, Parks and Rec. I don't think that's actually very far from who he is. If you start listening to him on his views about government, skill sets people should have, adding value to your community, being a carpenter, being a part of a carpenter collective for 18 years, playing the saxophone. He knows ballet, and he's like classically trained in theater. None of these things you would have thought of when you first see this character that most people associate with Parks and Rec. So yeah, that was a long-winded set up there.
And his co-star in the episode is none other than Murray Bartlett. For those of you that don't know, he was Armand, the hotel manager in the first season of White Lotus, and phenomenal. I mean, when I saw him in that, I was like, okay, best character in the whole show. It was the only reason really that I watched the entire first season, and it was disappointing what happens to his character. Again, spoiler alert.
I'm still getting there.
Well, it's
look, funny. Spoiler alert, brother.
Yeah, spoiler alert. It's been like during season 2, but fine, whatever.
Statute of limitations.
Is he the one that gets killed?
He does.
Okay.
Sorry, but yes, and it was just like, oh, what his best fucking character.
And it's funny because on his interview with Stephen Colbert, there was discussion of a spinoff, and Colbert was like, well, that'd be difficult.
Yeah, it would, considering how things ended.
And so I guess the show creator for White Lotus did say there may be some potential to go back in time. So here's hoping. I didn't finish it, but I know he is a phenomenal character.
Yes. Now, Grinch, you, again, when I said at the outset of this, you came to this first. Like, I never played the video game. Still haven't. I know the video game. I've watched playthroughs of the video game, but I've never played it myself firsthand. I don't know if you have.
Parts of it, and then I've watched other clips and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you mentioned that this show was coming out, I hadn't seen it. You mentioned I believe you actually sent out the stats between the first and second episode and the viewership increase. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to give this thing a watch. I'm a fan of Pedro Pascal, the main character. He is the principal character. Obviously he is in The Mandalorian. He was way back when in Game of Thrones. He played the Red Viper.
As was Bella Ramsey.
Yeah. Yes. So I mean,
one of the most famous episodes, The Red Wedding, right?
The guy has been around and he's done some great stuff. I was a big fan of his in Narcos, where he plays a cop. And so, when you had said that, I was like, okay, well, let me check out this show. You watch the first show, and obviously it's the setup. And I have watched the gameplay through, so I know the first
very
episode
similar.
Yes. Oh my God,
it's almost mirror imaged. Mm-hmm. It feels like.
You go into episode 2, another great episode. So I get why viewership, and then we land on episode 3. And at the beginning of episode 3, and again for spoilers, at this point Tess has already died, and it is just the principal character and his cargo, who is the young actress. And
Ellie.
they are just walking down the road, and they're actually talking about going to Bill and Frank's, who are the two characters that we'll be discussing today in episode 3. No real lead up to it, no explanation about who they are. I think her comment was she makes some comment about, are they nice or something, and he says Frank is, or something like that, right? And that's all he says.
Yeah,
and
there's no warning whatsoever of the emotional trip you're about to go on.
Right. And then it cuts to a guy sitting in a basement who is clearly a survivalist, doomsday prepper type, and they are
my spirit animal.
Yeah, they're rounding up people in this small town, and he's watching it on closed circuit TV, and then we're off to the races in terms of their particular story. These two characters, Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett, play Bill and Frank. I didn't know what to expect. And I know you had watched it first. I came along after I was watching it. I was fucking shocked, and I watched it twice, and totally unexpected. Now, I know it is, what do you say? It is a standalone episode, and it can be watched separate from the entire series, which I thought was an interesting way to do it, because it doesn't really progress the storyline in terms of what...
I mean, a small bit.
A small bit, but that's only
small bit.
That's only the
kind of
part
a small a small important bit. But you're right. For the most part, I would agree. You could watch it independently of itself, I guess.
Yeah. The only part that it ties to the storyline is the very quick meeting we get with Bill and Frank and Tess and Pedro Pascal's character,
Joel.
Thank you. We get their meeting when they have lunch, and you know, you can feel the tension between Bill and Joel because they're both very similar in their approach to people. And Bill is the Nick Offerman character. And then it ties together right there at the end when Joel and Ellie show up. And so for the most part, though, it's a standalone episode. You can watch it by itself in a vacuum and it doesn't matter. Or you can watch it as part of the larger story and it still works. But it was a phenomenal episode. The fact that it is a gay love story was lost on me until right when he's playing the piano. Like I did not see that coming.
It's funny. I was watching it with daughter Haas, and I looked over at one point. I don't know, a scene or so right before that, and I went, "They're gonna hook up, aren't they? Like this is a thing." And she goes,
"This is happening."
Yeah. She's like, "Oh yeah, for sure." And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I thought." You can kind of feel where it was leading to. I mean, apocalyptic. I didn't even think it was that. I just thought it was, just two people who were falling in love in a, less than desirable scenario.
Well, yeah, when trust is a huge thing, and here's a guy who's living on his own for years, and then Murray Bartlett's character Frank stumbles into one of his booby traps. Mm-hmm. And then, Bill comes out and he's like,
you said booby trap.
No trust, but he's like, I'm going to let you out and you need to get the fuck on. And the guy's like, I love the scene because he's like, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten in 2 days. He goes, well, it doesn't sound that long when you say it out loud.
And then he's like, and that's not my problem, bro. Yeah. This ain't an Arby's. And he's like, Arby's doesn't give free lunch. And he's like, yeah, they didn't back in the day either, dude.
And it almost takes Bill a moment. He's like, because he's like, Arby's was a restaurant. And he's like, fuck.
Well, it was such, like, he pulled off being disarming perfectly.
Yes.
Just perfectly, of being self-aware and somehow keeping like a sense of humor in that moment. And I mean, we, maybe, I don't remember which episode, but, we've talked, well, maybe it was like in this, oddly enough, like talking about prisons and solitary confinement and so forth. Humans are social creatures.
Right.
They need it. It's I don't know where it is in Maslow's hierarchy, but it should be there if it's not listed in that pyramid of just mental health, staying connected, feeling like you're part of something. And then there's the love aspect. But what they managed to pull off in a single episode was so incredible, of like the vulnerability of wanting to love but being afraid to, but then ended up doing it. And then for them to show them getting older together as they move through the years, and their funny fight about, I just want some paint,
right, and a lawnmower.
So there were so many scenes that it was just like, I'll be honest, like their first love scene, I was just like moved by the whole like conversation and vulnerability and the honesty they had with each other. I mean, it was just the way it was written, the way it was directed, the way it was acted, everything was just, I was just blown away. Like, I mean, it was just two people falling in love.
And like you said, in a less than ideal situation.
Yep.
And I think we're watching, and if you haven't seen the show takes place, it starts in 2003 when this apocalyptic event occurs, and then we jump ahead 20 years. And what we get to watch is the 20-year period of Bill and Frank. Now, the first, I think, is it 3 or 4 years Bill's by himself before Frank shows up, right?
I think that's right. Yeah. I think it said like a couple years or 3. Yeah, something.
Right. So we get this very quick snapshot of Bill by himself, setting himself up, his generator, all of his supplies, going to different stores. I mean, we get that piece. And then Murray shows up. And like Haas said, we see this very intimate situation where he's like, okay, basically it's like, I'm going to take you in, I'm going to feed you, I'm going to let you shower, clothe you, and then eventually you're going to get the fuck on. And then Murray's like, well, we're going to make love, but if I do this, I get to stay a few days. Which, I guess it's like,
because I mean, he was honest. He's like, I'm no whore. Like,
yeah, right.
This may be the zombie apocalypse, but I still.
That's his line. I'm no whore.
He's like, yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, but I mean, and you got to admire that. Like, right, look, this is the zombie apocalypse, and we're 2 dudes who want to do this, but like, that still doesn't make me a whore.
I'm not cheap.
You're right. Yeah,
and
exactly.
The fact that he understands Bill and who Bill is as a survivalist, he understands if I hitch myself to this horse, there's protection there. And right now I'm a lone individual out in the wilderness. And if I make this work, part of that, take the love aspect, he's probably going, what is it? Self
deprecating.
No. He's just self-aware that he knows he can't take care of himself in that way. And here's a guy he knows can. So
not just that, but dude apparently makes a pretty mean piece of venison, or a nice piece of rabbit.
With the Beaujolais.
Appropriately, with the Beaujolais, right?
To me, like, this is when I truly appreciate the art and skill of acting, because I couldn't do a scene like that. I mean, I'm not trained, but I just couldn't. I don't think I could be comfortable enough to be outside of myself to like be there. And when
a man climbs on top of you in bed, you're
right.
Like,
I mean, nope. and ignoring the gay part of it, it didn't really matter. Like, this is when you realize that like these people are talented. Like, they are talented in their trade craft. And if I understand the timeline correctly, because I didn't finish the whole interview, but I watched the first half of it with Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett. Murray Bartlett had not become a household name because of White Lotus yet when he was cast. Whereas Nick Offerman
was a known commodity,
was offered the role.
Right.
And so they were talking about how the joy of when you're an actor and your agent calls you, because Nick Offerman said, like, I didn't get that. The joy of like somebody calling me and going, you fought for that role and you got it. Whereas Murray Bartlett was like, I was ready to scream from the rooftops, but we were in a pandemic and lockdown. Like, I couldn't even really go do anything. So, I just had to kind of celebrate within my little circle. Nick Offerman actually says, when I got the role, I told the wife and we made slow, what did he say? Languorous love.
Yeah. Well, and here's what's interesting. It was actually her who told him he was taking the role.
Yeah. Because we didn't say this yet, but he's married to
Megan
Mullally, who
Will and Grace, Karen.
Will and Grace fame. Yeah. And they, back to the many, layers of this onion that is Nick Offerman, he does stand-up comedy of his own style, but he's done it with his wife. He's also an author. He's written, I think, 2 books, and they've done comedy bits together. So that's kind of a cool story, because when he was first coming on the scene, he joked that he was, Mrs. Mullally's husband.
Right.
He wasn't really a standalone person. But I'll tell you, not to digress too much in terms of his body of work, but I still say one of the best shows that a lot of people never seen with Nick Offerman is his role in Devs, which was on Hulu.
Yeah, he plays he
plays Forrest. He's like the owner, CEO, owner of the company, and I thought he was fantastic in that show.
I'm not familiar with it. Devs.
Mm-hmm.
I have to check it out. Yeah, the one I was telling Thor about was the movie Out Loud. What was it again? something out loud.
But he would have to say that now.
Yeah.
Damn you, sir.
Oh, did I say 2 books?
Yeah.
He may have as many as like 5, 6. Where the deer and the antelope play, greatest love story ever told, paddle your own canoe, good clean fun, gumption, all rise are the ones that I see.
Nice.
It's dating back to 2013.
Hearts Beat Loud.
Yeah, Heart Beat Loud.
Hearts Beat Loud. That's the movie you were talking about.
Hearts Beat Loud. Yeah, is the movie. I don't know if you've seen that either, Grinch. It's
I have not.
Oh, it's just a touching story of a father and a daughter, and since we're all fathers of daughters,
it makes sense.
Seems a little
nice
apropos
connective
at this
tissue.
Point. Yeah. I don't know. It's just he's for a guy who kind of like cut his jib being a comedian and kind of like I think hangs his hat on that quite a bit. The point is that I mean just
serious depth.
He's got, he really does. There are a lot of, like you said earlier, many layers to the onions of Nick Offerman, for sure.
And I think a lot of that gets showcased in this particular episode, which is nice because we're seeing, and it's a feature length episode. I think it's like it's an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, it's not your standard,
I thought
something like that. It's not your standard length episode, which was fine because they had a lot to pack in. But, it's interesting kind of watching the arc of both of these characters. Him being a survivalist, Nick Offerman's character, Bill being a survivalist, Murray Bartlett coming along, him taking him in, them becoming a couple, and then almost the trivial shit that occurs. Now, you look at it as trivial, right? Because there's an apocalypse going on, but at one point in the story, it jumps ahead a few years, and we see a fight between the two of them, where I think you said it, Grinch, or one of you said, he just wanted paint. He wanted a lawnmower. He wanted to make the town look nice. Bill doesn't understand it because Bill's like, look, we're trying to survive. And he's like, I think Frank's point is we're fucking humans. Right. To be human, these are things that are important. And what's he say? He goes, oh, I forget. You live in a world where you live in a bunker and the government's all Nazis.
No, Nazis.
He goes, they are all Nazis.
He's like, well, they weren't back then. Yeah. And then he goes, or you're probably about to say the line that he says next.
No, go ahead.
Where he says something like, if this is about commodity management, you say commodity
resource management.
I'm going to walk into your tripwires.
Right. They are things that we find trivial, right? When it's wrapped around this monumental catastrophe that's occurred to the world. But for them living where they are and doing the things that they do on a daily, I mean, there is some mundane shit that would go on. It's just the two of you. Right. And he even says that in that moment, he goes, we're going to have friends. And Bill's like, what? And he's like, we're gonna fucking find friends.
And then
we're gonna
invite people over. A scene of them having a tea party,
lunch in the front yard. Right.
Oh, I was dying.
And you can tell Bill is just way outside his comfort zone at that point, sitting at that lunch table, and he's got a gun on the table, and Frank's like, no, put the gun away. I get it, but put the fucking gun away.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
But because it is a 20-year span of their relationship and it jumps, there are times where it then jumps ahead a few years. I don't know if I missed it. Do we know? Because at one point it does jump ahead and suddenly Murray's in a fucking wheelchair. Like, do we know what happened and why?
Well, it's funny because it goes from Bill being shot.
Yes.
In the
during
abdomen,
a raid.
Right. And then you presume he's going to die. And then it cuts to the scene of the front porch where Murray's character's on the front. Yeah. Well, on the front porch, and he brings him in out of the cold.
I don't think they ever said. I mean, It's kind of an undisclosed terminal illness, is what we're led to believe, and he's wheelchair bound. So,
but he did say there wasn't even a cure for it back then. So there's
so clearly
he did say that. Yeah,
it was going to be something debilitating long term.
And I think while it didn't add a whole lot to the story, it gave texture and context to the relationship Joel had developed clearly over the years, because he says when they're coming to terms in that first meeting, like, that fence is only going to last about another year. I can get you things that you can't get, like medicine. And so when he's opening the bag and he's like a roundy and a smallie or whatever, I think it's safe to assume that it's through that relationship with Joel.
Right. Agreed. Absolutely. And clearly the pain meds at the end were also, because it was the same pain meds that I think that one dude was taking from the RZ.
Yeah, or sleeping pills or something. Anyway, it was enough to do him in.
Did
in the video game, as I understand it, it's obviously a much more concise interaction, and I think they find the letter, but the letter is written differently. That's more like, I just can't deal with him anymore, a vibe, as opposed to, you know, this kind of poignant moment of like, they left the window open for the smell. Now you can take care of Tess,
right?
You know, and of course we know we just lost Tess, so it's like, let's just gut punch Joel one more time.
Right. Well, and I guess it's a weird juxtaposition, because at the outset of the episode, you see Joel and Ellie walking to Bill and Frank's, assuming everything's okay, that they're going to be there and greet them. And then on the other side, you've got obviously Bill and Frank, and with how they choose to go out. And in that letter, their assumption is Joel and Tess, everything's fine. And that the expectation is they're going to show up at the house together, and you know, and clearly neither of those things came to fruition.
That's what happens. Yeah,
Tess was gone.
What comes to pass. Yeah,
and both of them are dead by the time they get there. Anybody see that coming in terms of the way it happened?
Nope.
No,
neither did I. Because the minute he slugs the wine, I went, "Oh shit!"
Mm-hmm.
And you see Murray Bartlett's character is like,
Once he brought out the wine and it was already opened, and he poured the glasses and then he added more, I was like, this is a twofer.
Yeah,
this is going down.
And
I
certainly,
should be angry with you, but there's something poetic about it. It's like,
yeah, I mean,
romantic.
The game, you know, itself was always considered, you know, one of the best storytelling games that's ever been made, and for good reason. So there was, you know, I've seen this in some articles, like there was already some tremendous material to pull from, but this was not in the game. Everything that transpired between the two of them, you don't get in the game. You know that the two of them were there, and I think you get some more information and just about assuming, you know, kind of how long they've been together and so forth. But it wasn't this story at all. And it's just worth mentioning the other detail I'm aware of from watching like New Rockstars, IGN, all these other resources that focus, and you know, this is their wheelhouse of like Easter eggs and so forth, was the origin of the outbreak. Because I believe in the video game it starts in South America, but it's interesting that in episode 2 they really confirm that it started at a flower plant, which I believe is actually one of the largest flower plants in the world.
Yeah,
right?
Jakarta. And so if you think about episode 1, how they dodged the bullets, figurative bullets, because they didn't eat the cookies, they didn't eat the biscuits, and he forgot the birthday cake.
Right.
That's why they didn't get infected, because it was in the flour that was going around. And so that's kind of a cool detail, that if you think back on episode 1 of those small decisions that led to them, you know, to being where they were.
But again, you don't get that information until episode 3, when he tells her it was in a flour factory.
Yes. I mean, the what do you call a fungus specialist? The mycologist or something along those lines?
Mycologist,
like yeah.
That we see her.
Yeah, she asked the beginning, the general, she says, where did this start? And he says 4 employees at the whatever flower plant. And then, of course, there's that ominous transition to where he's like, what do we do? And she's like, bomb the cities.
Bomb everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't even imagine getting told something like that and having to digest the fact that I'm like, did you just tell me to bomb all of Jakarta? You know, like,
and she is a known specialist in the field, and if that's what she's telling you, I mean, there's a lot of weight there, and you're going, oh shit.
Yeah, and then she's like crying, saying, "Just send me a car and take me home to my family.
Yeah, I want to be with my family.
I want to be with my family when those bombs drop."
And I keep forgetting this damn word too. What is it? What's the fungus? It's not cephalopods. It's fucking.
Yeah, it's
cyclophiles or cyclophils.
It'll come back to me. They for what it's worth, these things do exist, but they have never gone into humans.
Mutated to humans, right?
Yeah, the story about the ants is true.
Cordyceps.
There you go.
The story is true that was told about infecting ants and like kind of taken over the colony, but the rest is obviously.
Yeah, because when I mentioned it, my wife's daughter actually said, "Oh, is this about the ants?" I'm like, "Why do you know that? Like, I didn't know that. Why do you know that?"
Everybody knows fungus shit now.
Yeah, it's like
every time I touch fungus, I'm like, it's starting. This is where it is. Ground zero.
I'm never eating cookies again.
Haas, you don't
pancakes.
like mushrooms, so you're fine.
I don't. You know how I feel about fungi.
Hey, I'm planning who I'm biting first. That's all.
Is that it? Yeah. Fair point.
Can we guess?
Look, at the end of the day, this was a phenomenal episode. If you hadn't seen it, I will tell you to go out and watch it. I've watched it twice, completely unexpected. And again, I've seen the game. I've watched playthroughs. I've never played the game. I'm curious, and I may actually have to purchase this game and go play it. But these two actors did a phenomenal job in terms of their portrayal of Bill and Frank, and the way they, I don't know, for me, the way they completely detached themselves from the entire story arc and did this standalone episode, I thought was phenomenal, and it worked. And like I said, I know Hash, like, well, they do tie it in. Yes, they do. There are bits and pieces that tie in to the main storyline in terms of their connection to Joel, their connection to Tess. And then at the end, the letter, and he talks about, where Bill's kind of outlining what's happened and tells Joel, look, take whatever you need and, do what you have to do. And you keep the people alive. And he, of course, expressly mentions Tess, but it's like, you keep the people alive that you care about. And an incredibly poignant episode. I didn't see it coming, and it was an incredible surprise. And then you sent out videos like, people's reactions and Stephen Colbert.
This is supposed to be a zombie show.
Right. And I even said that to you, Grinch, when you and I were online the other day. It was, why is it all females? Why is it all females having reactions? Like, don't, Haas, you said, you teared up. Grinch, you teared up. Why is it always females? Like, no guy. Well, maybe it's just because guys don't record themselves having a reaction like the females do. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, I mean, I'll just, I think I said this online, and the missus knows, because I read it as part of an article. The guy said, if you told me years ago that I would be a blubbering mess after watching a TV show based on a video game where you're trying to get a car battery written by the guy who wrote Scary Movie 4, I would have told you you're out of your damn mind.
Fucking A.
Fair play.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, I know this isn't necessarily the focus, but how damn good is Bella Ramsey too?
Yeah, agreed.
We crushing it as Ellie.
We knew she was amazing back in Game of Thrones, but yes, I mean, just her timing and her wit and her delivery, and just she's amazing.
Well,
like you said,
it's worth mentioning. I mean, think of some of the phenomenal actors we're getting out of it, like the United Kingdom writ large and Australia.
Agreed.
Because she's English, I believe, and if I get that wrong, I'll just say British broadly, so I'm not, misstepping there. Murray Bartlett's Australian.
Yes.
And
has been around for quite some time in Australia, obviously, but wasn't a known commodity here.
I think Bella Ramsey said when she was cast as, I forget the name of her character in Game of Thrones, she was
Lyanna
11.
Mormont.
Yeah, and she was 11.
And Anna Torv is also Australian. She's the one who played Tess. I loved her. She played Olivia in Fringe.
Yes.
Which is what I know her from.
And Mindhunter. She's also in Mindhunter.
You're right.
She's a
she was
professor
a
psychiatry.
Yes. Good call. Yeah, I've enjoyed her since Fringe, but yeah, I think she's Australian.
Yeah, you can hear that come out every now and then, but it's almost like she's been doing it long enough where it maybe is like the line almost gets a little blurred in her own mind of like she just converses now without having to like shift. Because I listened to her in an interview and I almost wasn't sure at times.
And it's interesting because Pedro Pascal right now is obviously a hot commodity with The Mandalorian and coming off of Narcos, doing The Mandalorian, and this. He just doesn't seem to make a misstep in terms of the roles he's choosing.
I saw a meme or something that said that currently Pedro Pascal has never acted in any show.
Is this the 89% Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah. Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah. Was that you that sent that out?
I didn't send it out, but I did see the same thing.
I saw that.
He's just, in terms of the casting for this, they've managed to just hit all the right places right now.
Oh, and Murray Bartlett's Australian, by the way.
Yes.
Did we say that?
I did. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The other thing too, just if you haven't, I posted it in in the chat, but that's the link to the Offerman Woodshop, which I believe, like I said, he's been doing since for like 18 years. He is furniture. A true carpenter. Like he believes in and having a skill. And he was asked about on Hot Ones, which is actually a really good just conversation. The questions that he gets asked are I think Hot Ones does a fantastic job of researching their guests and teeing up really good questions. Agreed. And this was one that they really did. And Offerman was very conversational and genuine, and almost unassuming. Like there's no ego there with the way he interacted. He wasn't doing this like, oh, these wings are shit, like some of the guests do that I enjoy seeing their faces fried off later. But he was asked about like, because I guess there was a quote related to like IKEA, and he's like, I know it's a good company, but I believe in building quality products that last decades, not something that's going to end up in a landfill, is his take on it.
And he's not wrong, being someone who owns more IKEA pieces than I wish to admit to. Not by choice, not by
They're
choice.
Versatile and easy,
They're versatile and easy, but man, are they pieces of crap.
Well, again, it's the being a carpenter. It's the Harrison Ford approach to acting, because he was a carpenter prior to being an actor.
Dude.
I want to say he was also a bouncer. He's
Harrison
from
Ford or Nick Offerman?
Nick Offerman. And he was asked about his intensity, like when he was a bouncer. And he said he learned that if he kind of stayed in sort of a quiet, unassuming, but intense sort of zone, it discouraged trouble more than the idiot who wanted to kind of always give off a vibe of like, hey, I'm a badass or whatever. And I think he told a story about meeting Mr. T when his wife was on one of the talk shows. And I guess Mr. T used to be a bouncer back in the day as well.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. He said he actually really liked Mr. T for similar qualities of just his very grounded and his beliefs and how he comported himself, which I thought was a cool little sidebar.
Nick Offerman was a cooler. He was like Patrick Swayze at the Double Deuce in Roadhouse. Just
the
a very
Double
cool customer.
Deuce.
That's it. I did see that when you sent out the Stephen Colbert interview with Murray Bartlett when he was talking about winning the Emmy for White Lotus, and he's like, "Yeah, I left it on the mantle just a day too long, and then I felt like a douchebag."
Yeah, when the guests showed up, and they're like, "Oh, there's your Emmy."
Like, fuck. So I stuck it in the guest room closet.
Yeah.
Couldn't have picked two. And interestingly enough, the two gentlemen, because, for the people that this makes uncomfortable, right? Like the love scene, right? It's two hairy ass bearded men climbing in bed together after some Beaujolais and some rabbit.
I thought it was sweet, actually.
Oh, and look, I love that he's like, "Have you done this before?" And he's like, "No." And Frank's like, "Then we'll take it easy." He's like, we'll start slow.
I'll start with the basics.
Right. The basics. There it is. Yeah, it was just totally not expected. Great episode though. And if you get a chance, go out and watch it. Watch the entire series. I mean, it's 3 episodes in. Sorry for the spoilers. It's been over a week. If you haven't seen it by now, that's on you. So that's too fucking bad. But ultimately, they have a fitting end. It is very romantic. Murray is dying. His character is dying, and Frank, and so Bill, at that point, when he pours the wine and gives him, he outlines, this is what our last day is going to be.
Which, can I say real quick? I had a little bit of a problem with one of the scenes.
Uh-oh.
The scene where Bill is telling Frank, "I'm dying, and if you love me, you'll do this thing for me."
You mean where Frank is telling Bill?
Or Frank is telling Bill, sorry. Yeah. "If you love me, you'll do this thing for me." First of all, I'm like, no, that's not a healthy love relationship, first of all. And then there was the second component of, not only we do this thing for me, but you'll do it this very specific way. And it's like, well, that's not how love works, see, because love is a little more complicated than that, homie. I get they had to write it and you have to compact and get from A to B and so on and so forth, but I did take offense to that scene, because I don't, for all the young listeners out there who may be listening to this, that is not a healthy, appropriate love relationship. Just saying.
Well, I will say this as a caveat to what Haas is saying, is the actual line Frank says is, "I want you to love me the way I want." So it's the way Frank, it's his last day on Earth, right?
I get it. I get it, but that's fucked up, man. To put
but
that
he
on
also
another
knows,
person.
He knows that obviously he sees something in Bill. He's like, I know there's a softness to you that does exist. You're this hard ass doomsday prepper, survivalist.
I get all of that. All that makes sense. But I'm just saying that's fucked up.
I don't know. I'm Team Thor here.
Y'all are fucked up.
I think if it's your last day, you get to lay down some demands.
Now, right? You're like, it's like your birthday, right?
There isn't any room for negotiation, but I think it fit the characters in that Frank knew he needed to state very clearly what he wanted to have happen.
Right.
That there was no ambiguity. Because the time wasn't going to be negotiated at that point. You know, like the decision had been made. This is the day, and I mean, I know we didn't spend a lot of time like how much pain was he in and all that, but you're at the end of the world. You're not mobile. Imagine losing the guy you depend on for some random thing.
And you're
like
stuck in a chair,
roof,
right?
You know, and you're like, if I get up enough speed,
I can roll myself off this porch.
Yeah.
I understand your point, Haas, but I think the thing there was it's like Frank understood that, you know, Bill was always going to be Bill. And it's like, this one day, I'm not asking for anything else, but this one day I need you to love me the way I want. Or you know,
by killing me.
Yes.
Well, he went with him.
He went with him. I mean, like you said.
I get it. I mean, look. It's clean. It's it's put in a box and it's wrapped and it's tied up with a nice little bow. I get all that from a writing perspective. I'm just saying, you know.
Well, he also didn't divulge at that point that he was planning to do it too.
I know, but
right.
Still, I don't think demanding someone else's to do something. The whole thing is, if you love me, you'll do this thing. I've never been a fan of that approach, is all I'm saying. I think I take issue with that. And I think anyone in a healthy love relationship would as well. They'd be like, I understand you want to go out on your terms. Cool. But this should be a fucking conversation. This is still a fucking relationship. This is still a marriage.
Say, I want you to drive me off a cliff at 90. And you're like, wait, am I in the car?
and at the end of the day, if Bill's like, no, I'm not doing that, what's Frank gonna do? He doesn't have authorship over his own body at that point.
I know, and I'm not saying. Like, here's my point. My point is I think, if I was in a situation, I would be like, hey, hold on, time out. Look, all right. Can we at least talk about this instead of you making these demands of me because I'm supposed to love you, therefore I'm supposed to just automatically do these crazy fucking things for you, like, oh, I don't know, prepare this wild and crazy day of love where we marry each other and then we kill ourselves. Like, that should be a two-person conversation, man. That should be a two-way street. That shouldn't be a one-way fucking No, so I took issue with that scene. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, this is why different people have different relationships.
It was a beautiful scene nonetheless.
Nobody's painting Haas into a corner, apparently.
That's it.
Thank you. You got that right, homie.
So you're gonna put enough medication in that wine to choke a horse when, you know, if you were in that situation, or you'd be like, sorry, Frank.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not in that situation. I'm just saying. And having been in, as you both know, having been in a situation where I very early on almost lost my spouse, it's a subject matter that's actually, you know, a little closer to home than not. But the truth of the matter is it wasn't because of anything she did or didn't do or decisions she made or didn't make. It was something that was being done to her. But the point is it should be a conversation. It shouldn't be, hey, by the way, I'm ready to die. Kill me. Yeah, and you'll do it, without reservation because you say you love me. I think that's fucked up.
I mean, again, I love you, bro, but I think if your wife was in this situation, you'd be speaking a different tune right now. You'd be like, "I'll love you however the fuck you want." It's our last day.
I've been in this situation, but
here's the difference.
But not for 20 years.
Not in a post-apocalyptic world where there is no cure or hope for one. I'm not. Like in the scenario of like the do not resuscitate, we'll say, having to make a decision like that because obviously you want to retain people in your life. I see that as different than this scenario of they were in the end game. You know, they were, at least he was. And I think it speaks to the power of the love Bill had for Frank because he's like, I don't want to go on without him. So I'm agreeable to him scripting our last day, even though he only knows it's right now it's his last day.
Right.
Again, I'm just saying that should have been a 2-person conversation because there were 2 persons in the relationship. One motherfucker shouldn't go, oh, you know what? Today's the day, and here's how it's going to go.
He's the one dying.
And if you love me, you'll be on board. And if you don't, I guess you don't.
He's the one dying.
If I'm dying, my wife better do everything I want on that last day. I don't want no fucking argument. I'm just saying that's me.
I want to eat pure lard. If you love me,
you'll spoon feed it.
I want to lick your toes after you walk through airport security 30 times.
Strange request, but I'll do it.
And eat mushrooms. Eat mushrooms off the feet.
That scene where Tessa's character is against the pillar and the fucking shit's going. Oh, I couldn't.
Let me tell you how I instantly reacted to that scene. I was like, I would have had about 4 grenades bundled up,
boom,
all with the pins pulled, and just been like, ha ha.
Exactly. So many options.
Kissed
there.
by that shit at the end,
right? So many fucking options. That would have not been the choice I went with.
Yeah, it's fucking lighter that won't light. I'm like,
fuck that. I wouldn't have stood there.
I'd been laying in the petroleum or whatever, gasoline, diesel, whatever it was, rolling around in it, like
light my ass on fire. Yes. Barring your opinion of how that last day should have gone, Haas, I still think it was an incredibly poignant last day.
It was. It's not that I don't get it, bro. I do. Sorry.
And of course they end with the exact same meal they start with, the rabbit and the vegetables and the wine,
which I think is when most of us were like, oh. One other small detail is in the game, Ellie, I guess, grabs porn. She doesn't grab a firearm, which she does in the show. So it'll be curious to see where that changes. And it was kind of cool when cool in a way in episode 2 where she's like, it's already it's been completely looted, and she's holding the Tampax,
right. Exactly. I have to say though, in some way I'll be disappointed that this isn't a sustainable character arc. Now they're both gone, and I understand, right, they're following the game or whatever, but I actually like both characters. I would like to have seen them have a larger role in terms of what occurs moving forward, but clearly that's not the way the game works, and that's not the way the series.
But you know what? I mean, but there's 20 years there of them working with Joel and Tess, to where if they wanted to do a spinoff series,
we see such a small.
We might see that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I don't know that they should do anything with that. I think you leave. It's like, like what joked about earlier. How do you know when a painting's done? When you stop painting, like, leave it be. It's perfect. Right. It's sublime. It's
powerful in its own way.
Powerful.
Yeah.
And by the way, this emotional journey ain't over. Like, this show is going to be rough. A lot of what the game is about is, you could just say it's the standard get a package from A to B and there's immunity there. Been done before. Where The Last of Us really got its praise was in its character development, storytelling, and exploration of kind of humanity and what it would be like under these tensions and in a world like that. And humans are equally capable of atrocities, on top of the fact you have this horrible thing in the world, and that's still to come. Yeah, and it's going to be an emotional journey for sure.
I'm excited. I couldn't be happier that they picked HBO. Just has a way of cherry picking the best books, the best video games, the best stories to tell visually.
I would still. Oh, sorry, House. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I just, it pleases me to see where they take it, because I mean they're going to make it its own, right?
I think thus far I'm pretty comfortable saying this is one of the best video game adaptations I've seen, if not the best.
Agreed.
Because there's some shit out there that frankly is just fucking garbage and destroyed everything that I thought I would love about that game or experience. And I don't know.
I'm going to compare it to another show which we've talked about, a huge fan of, and that's Ted Lasso. And for me, taking Ted Lasso and doing what they did in season 1, regardless of the extra episodes in season 2, but the the pull, the tug, the back and forth, the emotional strain from the comedic aspect to the dramatic aspect to, the powerful moment aspect. Great show so far. And I know they've got season 3, which is where they're supposed to wrap it up. This one, I won't say it's my concern, but my wonder is they had such a phenomenal episode early on. Are they ever going to be able to maximize that effect? Because it says currently 10 episodes for season 1. I won't say you blew your wad episode 3, but I mean, you managed to find an episode and a storyline that resonated with people, wildly popular. Is it going to be downhill from here? Like,
I can't
Lasso
see how.
did just enough in their episodes, right? They never hammered home on one episode, and it was really just the entire arc that worked for Ted Lasso. Here, did this one episode, is this going to be problematic in terms of how the next 7 play out, and will they ever eclipse that popularity again? Or was this the mountaintop and it's all downhill from here?
I mean, I hope not. I mean, it's a standalone episode for all intents and purposes, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think we're going to be okay. And it's already been renewed for a second season.
That's what I was checking to see if they had already
said
it
has been renewed. Okay. Yes.
The taste clusters managed to work here.
Clusters, that's right. The verticals.
I mean, it's not on Netflix. It's safe, right?
That's true. That's true. Thank God.
Well,
because we know it just had an episode with 2 guys in love, so that means Netflix was probably going to give it the hatchet.
Well, and what's interesting, okay, so Ellie is 14 on the show, but Bella is actually 19. And there's some discussion, I guess, related to her age in season 2. But I'm just going to enjoy this ride while it's here. I think they're crushing it. In HBO, I trust. So
they haven't let us down.
No,
they bring it. I mean, you can call the last 2-3 seasons of Game of Thrones what it is, but
I do want to ask a question here because I just saw this. Now we know that Pedro Pascal plays the principal character of Joel. Apparently, rumor has it that earlier in the day, before Pascal was offered, it was reported that Mahershala Ali was offered the role. If you know who he is, black gentleman, great actor.
Yep.
He was offered the role, and Matthew McConaughey turned the role down. Would either of them have worked in this role? You think?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so.
And again, we haven't seen a lot of Joel. I mean, we I won't say we haven't seen a lot of him. Obviously, we have. But
he's got gravitas without having to open his mouth.
Yeah, his character definitely carries weight.
I think those other 2 actors need more spoken word to pull the same gravitas that Pedro Pascal does without having to.
I mean, I think I agree with that, Haas, in terms of, I mean, not taking anything from somebody like a Matthew McConaughey or the other actor you mentioned.
Mahershala Ali, yeah.
I mean, first off, you know me, I'm method acted or bust. So that's what I want to see on.
So Jared Leto, you want Jared Leto in the principal?
That's really where I was going with this, but I think what's the term that I like stealing from Tyler Martinovich. Pedro Pascal to me is pitch perfect. Now I don't know anything else, but I really like what we have. I think he pulls off that brooding. Like, you can tell the wheels turn, and I know they gave us the flashback of his daughter, which is like, we all assumed that's what was going on when he saw the flashlight and he's holding her. But like, he's really nailing it in the right way, and I think it nests really well with the game. So I think that's a great choice. Just back to Bella real quick though. Last of Us game 2, Last of Us 2. If they follow that storyline, is set 5 years after the events of the first game.
Okay.
So be curious to see what they do with that.
Gotcha. I was just interesting that those were the 2 names because neither one are strangers to, obviously, HBO. Both were in the True Detective series. Matthew McConaughey,
which is amazing, by the way.
Ali in season 2, yeah. So I would have been okay if either one of those, like if we didn't know Pedro Pascal, if either one of them had been cast in the principal role, I think I'd have been okay with it. But you're right. I think Pascal less is clearly more here. He's not doing much, and at the same time doing a ton. I guess that's weird to say, but still doing a ton.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
It does to me too, because that's how I feel about it, what he's been doing. Like just the simple looks and glances he gives.
Right.
Like he can say 4 lines in like a 3-second, look.
Well,
Right.
I mean, even the scene that's as simple as stacking the rocks and him looking at his knuckles in the water when he said, like, "Oh, it's just a hairline fracture." It symbolizes he's just internalizing the weight, gravity, emotion. Like he doesn't express that. That's just not who he is. Of like, let me tell you why I'm an asshole. Like he doesn't bother explaining all that,
Which, when you think about it, is even more impressive because when he plays the Mandalorian, where you don't get to see his face 99% of the time,
right?
It's freaking impressive as shit.
Yeah, that is funny to think about.
And even at the end, when he takes the letter that Bill has written and he walks out into the front yard with it, like, you know what I'm saying? There is a mutual respect, I think, between him and Bill. They both understand each other. They say that at the picnic table when they're having the lunch the first time. They're like, I get it. I understand why you have a gun on your hip, even though we pose no particular threat. You lack a trust because of the time. And so he understood that situation. And I think Pascal is doing a great job. And I'm hoping that this is not the peak. I'm hoping that we have not kind of managed to hit the mountaintop here with the next 7 episodes still left to go. And I'll be curious to see how season 2 plays out, since they've now, does that mean this storyline, does it get wrapped up in a nice, neat little package? And is the second season something completely different?
Well, the video game gives you
enough.
The video game's got everything you need for what the story is going to entail. I think it's more in between those two bookends is what we're going to be curious, or what we're going to learn that the team developed and expounded upon.
Exactly, like this individual episode, right? Like, this was a carve out.
And even like Game of Thrones deviated from the books.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will be closer than like a Game of Thrones, who took like a background character and made it a foreground character, even though that's literally what just happened. So, so I think it's going to be a hell of a ride. I really look forward to each episode coming out. Something else I wanted to mention: viewership for this show has gone up each week, which is an anomaly. The second episode was a 22% jump over the first, 4.7 to 5.7 million viewers. And then episode 3 rose another 12%, up to 6.4 million. Game of Thrones, House of Dragon, White Lotus, and Euphoria all saw like losing viewership going into week 2 before like going up on week 3. House of Dragon gained viewership in week 2, but dove pretty sharply by week 3. White Lotus season 2 lost viewership in week 2, but went up in 3. Euphoria season 1 went down in week 2 and 3. Season 2 went up and then down by week 3.
Yeah, and I think we're coming off that. I think the next episode 4, is going to be another jump because everybody's coming off that high, and they're like, "Oh, what's next?" So I think you're going to definitely see another spike in viewership for episode 4.
But to your point, where does those spikes end, and then will they be able to rebound from whatever that fall off is from the climb?
Well, and again, to the review bombers that are homophobic, get fucked.
Yeah,
just get fucked. Go move to like Upper Siberia or something, or somewhere that we can't hear you on social media, please, because you fucking suck.
Because this was a phenomenal episode. I will say this. They did with this episode, unfortunately, Haas, what Ted Lasso was not able to do with their standalones, like the beard after hours.
Beard. Yeah. I think we all enjoyed that episode, but I think you have to be a little bit of a beard head, maybe a little bit of a Lasso head to really fully enjoy that carve out. No, I think you're right. I thought about that earlier when we were talking about this. I think you're 100% on point. I think what they did with this standalone episode was fucking amazing.
I'm hoping the next 7 are just like this one.
I love the title of this article, which is on Kotaku. The straights are not happy about being forced to watch gay men have normal human interactions with one another.
Jesus fucking Christ.
That is a great fucking. I love that.
You know,
Which is funny because we're all straight men, but I mean, love, man. Love is love. Like, how can you be mad at two people who care for each other and take care of each other and love each other? Like, I mean, I just don't understand why people get so offended and outraged.
And again, at the end of the day, it exists. It's here to stay. There's no reason it shouldn't be in natural consumption, right?
Agreed.
I mean, they are relationships that do exist in the world.
And it's funny because Daughter Haas and I were talking after the episode today, and she goes, she says, Daddy-O, if that had been, because we were talking about what Grinch was just pointing out as the outrage by certain, mouth breathers on this subject matter. And Daughter Haas said to me, she goes, if that had been two women, we wouldn't be getting this outrage.
You also probably wouldn't have, I don't think it would have been as powerful. And that's not
agree.
to take anything away from women.
I think you're right. I know. And but it's a sad commentary that we can put things in certain boxes and be okay with them, but then not put other things in other boxes and not be okay with them, or not be able to talk about them or discuss them or enjoy the emotions that go along. Like, the standards we have when we label and put things away is it's a little mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's funny. These snowflakes are so triggered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because Wifey Haas said something similar to that.
Yeah,
she goes, I do protest. They think that I do believe they protest. What I can't
protest too much.
Yeah, I doth thinketh they protest too much.
Yeah. At the end of the day, look, as we wrap up here, so we don't run long. At the end of the day, go out and watch this series. If you don't have HBO, get HBO. Do the Big Mac thing. Sign up for 7 days and then cancel your subscription. But go out and watch this. If nothing else, watch episode 3. It is a standalone episode. You'll miss a lot. You'll miss a lot if you choose not to watch the rest of the series. I completely think that's absolutely 100% true. But if you just want to go out and see this episode, feel free. It's definitely worth a watch. I thought it was phenomenal. I'm looking forward to the rest of the series, the next 7 episodes, and we'll see how all of this plays out. Gentlemen, any final thoughts before we call it a day?
Well, I said what I had to say.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Look, Grinch has been high on this all week. He's been sending out fucking video clips and news articles, and clearly this is something like talent. You're an artist now, right? Talent recognizes talent. And so true. He gets it. He gets it. His may be AI generated, but he gets it.
Yep. As a fellow creative, I get it.
That's it. Yeah. So, I mean, you can appreciate what it takes to really sell this in terms of two guys, in this situation, selling this relationship, masters of their craft, both Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett. Go out, watch this episode, do yourself a favor. It'll be entirely worth the hour and 22 minutes or whatever it is. It's a wonderful popcorn episode. You can see it, you can watch, you can enjoy. Bring some Kleenex. I think both of you would agree. You may
sad
need
Kleenexes,
those.
Not happy Kleenexes.
Bring a hanky.
Feel free to selfie your reaction. If you want to film your reaction and send it to macbottom003@gmail.com. Mac would love to see these.
Or did you know Offerman was in an episode of The West Wing?
Did I know that?
He's actually been in quite a bit. I'll be honest, I didn't know until I looked.
When they did the reboot of Will and Grace, when they did the reboot of Will and Grace, he is actually, because he is married to Megan Mullally, Karen's character on Will and Grace, he actually has a role where he sleeps with both Will and Grace. And they find out that he's sleeping with both of them.
That's funny.
This is really interesting on IG, or no, it's called The Gamer. Damn it, where's the part where he wrote?
I don't know.
It's hard to imagine anything in the show hitting harder than watching Joel weep as Sarah dies in his arms, but somehow Bill and Frank's story managed to do just that and then some.
Upstages it.
When it comes to Sarah's death, at least those of us who had played the game were prepared. It still hit like a truck, but we knew it was coming. No one was prepared for the Bill and Frank story.
No. 100% not.
And this article, I just don't know. It says supposedly there is a director's cut of this episode with 40 more minutes.
Really? Wonder if they'll release that at some point. I'd be curious.
Sure hope so.
That might be something interesting to see. All right, gentlemen, well, we're going to wrap it up there. Yeah. I appreciate you guys jumping in and doing this. Great episode. Wonderful series. Go out and watch it. Nick Offerman, Murray Bartlett, Pedro Pascal, Bella Ramsey. It's Last of Us on HBO. Check it out if you can. Episode, by the time this airs, episode 4 will have been released for The Last of Us. So we will watch that with bated breath and see how that all ends up playing out. Gentlemen, thank you. For all of our listeners, you can go out to aspiritoddebate.com, check out all of the drinks that we try here. The long porn star. What is this? The absolute long porn star?
The absolute long porn star.
The bourbon smash with caveats and my grimace, grape soda and vodka. You can check out all of the drinks that we have. You can check out all of our episodes are in the vault, like 170 episodes, plenty of hours worth of content you can go and listen to. If that's not good enough, drop us a line at the 4 horsemen at aspiritoddebate.com. A drink you'd like us to try, topic you'd like us to debate. If you'd like to tell us what you think of Last of Us or episode 3 of Last of Us, feel free to do that. We would love to get your opinion and your feedback. And if you have any reactions that you film, send those to macbottom003@gmail.com and he'll forward them on to us so we can watch them.
Please do that. Please,
I'd love to see that.
Do that. If you love us,
film your reaction watching this episode.
You would do that. You would film your reaction and you would send it to the macbottom003@gmail.com.
There you go. All right, gentlemen. Well, there we go. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. This will not be The Last of Us. You will hear us again. What I did there. And hopefully by the time we are back, Mac will be here. He'll be done celebrating somebody's birthday, whoever the fuck that is.
I can't be sad like this every week.
Right? Gentlemen, thank you so much. Love doing this week in and week out. I love you guys. We will do this again next week.
This was a fun one to discuss.
Yes, it was.
It was good times.
The views, information, or opinions expressed during the A Spirited Debate podcast series or any affiliated podcasts are solely those of the hosts or guests involved and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the hosts or guests may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity, unless explicitly stated. While guests are invited to listen, listeners acknowledge that they are not being provided professional advice from the podcast or its guests. The content within the parameters of A Spirited Debate podcast series or any affiliated podcast are for entertainment and educational purposes only. Any views or opinions are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, or individual.